What if I told you that everything you believed about the isolation of ancient civilizations is a lie? We've grown accustomed to thinking that the great cultures of the past developed in complete isolation, separated by impassable oceans and thousands of miles of land. However, across a vast territory stretching from the sun-scorched deserts of Colorado to the icy, rocky plateaus of Peru, archaeologists are discovering something unsettling.
We're talking about thousands of identical T-shaped openings built into the most significant ancient structures.
These strange structures are found in temples, residential buildings, and defensive walls erected by peoples who never knew of one another. Different cultures in entirely different eras use the same complex form, defying the laws of logic in classical architecture. Creating a T-shaped opening requires far more effort and precision than building a standard rectangular door. Ancient engineers consciously embraced these difficulties, even though it demanded intricate work with heavy stone blocks. In the culture of the Pueblo Indians in the north, and the mysterious builders of Tiwanaku in the south, these doors occupied a central place in the architectural ensemble.
Researchers find the same shapes even in windows and decorative elements, indicating their deep symbolic meaning.
Watch the video to the end, and you'll discover how a single architectural detail shatters established historical accounts. We'll show you shocking footage from the Grand Canyon and the high-altitude plateaus of the Andes, where these doors have been preserved in perfect condition. You will understand why official science tries to ignore these strange coincidences and forces academics to remain completely silent. What secret does this shape hide, and why did it disappear along with those who created it? Are you ready for the shocking truth about the prevalence of these geometric forms? T-shaped windows are not a local phenomenon of a single specific culture or an isolated mountain tribe. Exactly the same structures pierce the monolithic walls of temples in the sacred valley of the Incas. These geometrically perfect openings are found in ancient pueblos across North America. The distance between these sites spans thousands of kilometers of impassable, mountainous, and desert terrain. Researchers are mapping each discovery to create an overall picture of the technology spread. The line of these monuments stretches across continents without any apparent logistical or trade connections. The walls of the buildings consist of massive blocks that fit tightly together without the use of mortar. In the center of these solid walls, perfectly carved T-shaped windows gape open.
The geometry of the openings remains consistent regardless of climate zone or elevation.
Builders expended enormous resources to carve right angles into solid bedrock. Every internal corner of an opening requires the stonemason's precision to prevent structural cracks. In Peru, such windows frame the main squares of ancient complexes and face strictly east. In North America, similar openings are built into rock dwellings above deep canyons. The shape is replicated with absolute precision, down to the millimeter, in the proportions of the upper and lower sections. Engineers analyze the weight distribution using complex computer simulations of masonry structures. The results show that a T-shaped cutout is the worst option for a monolithic load-bearing wall. Stress concentration at right-angle internal corners inevitably leads to the formation of deep cracks. Under any physical pressure, it is precisely these corners that become the epicenter of the destruction of the entire stone monolith.
Ancient builders could not have been unaware of these physical properties of heavy stone.
Thousands of stone windows have remained intact for many hundreds of centuries. They have survived dozens of destructive underground tremors that wiped later structures off the face of the earth. The stone surrounding the openings remains monolithic, showing no signs of wear or material fatigue. This completely contradicts the basic laws of material resistance known to modern construction science. The masters of the past used a method of compensating for colossal internal pressure that is unknown to physics. Every detail of these monolithic structures points to a deep understanding of solid mechanics. The lower window sills often have a slight, barely noticeable slope deep into the dark interior. The upper lintel rests on the side blocks with unmatched precision down to a tiny fraction of a millimeter. The stones are fitted together so tightly that not even a thin steel blade can pass between them. This jewel-like precision was achieved using methods that archaeologists cannot explain. This phenomenon forces a re-evaluation of the entire history of engineering on the American continent. Official sources continue to ignore the physical contradictions associated with these massive structures. Researchers avoid discussing the perfect geometry that defies the limitations of primitive manual labor. We'd love to hear your perspective. What do you think about such similarities in technology across different continents? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel to join us in unraveling architectural mysteries like these. I will reveal the best-kept secret of classical archaeology in South America. For decades, guidebooks and textbooks offered a very simple explanation for these strange shapes. It was claimed that the stepped structure of the openings helped heavy buildings withstand strong underground tremors. Tour guides continue to tell tourist stories about the ingenious seismic stability of Peruvian structures. This generalized theory became so popular that no one attempted to test it experimentally. Seismologists decided to analyze the behavior of the T-shaped structure on a special vibration test bench. An exact replica of the ancient stone wall with a characteristic window in the middle was assembled in the laboratory. Sensors recorded critical stress in those very inner corners during the very first vibrations. Instead of dissipating the destructive energy, the shape of the window concentrated it at a single point.
The stone model quickly became covered in cracks and collapsed under its own weight.
The results of this physical test came as a real shock to many architectural historians. The protective seismic function turned out to be nothing more than a beautiful and convenient myth. Not only did the windows fail to reinforce the massive structure, but they also made it significantly more vulnerable. Builders had to employ additional, hidden methods to stabilize the masonry around such an opening. They deliberately made their task more difficult, risking collapse in order to preserve a specific geometric shape. The natural ventilation system played an important role in preserving agricultural supplies inside the buildings. Dry, cool air prevented mold from forming on corn cobs and dried meat. The T-shape allowed for effective regulation of the interior microclimate. However, this practical application does not explain the enormous costs of working with ultra-hard granite. A standard, narrow, rectangular window would have handled the task of ventilation just as well. The ventilation hypothesis also fails to explain the sacred significance of these structures. Windows of this shape were often found in temples, where no food supplies were stored. They adorned ritual halls, to which access was strictly forbidden to ordinary residents. Erosion on the stones shows that some openings were originally sealed with solid blocks.
They were created as false windows, serving exclusively symbolic or technological purposes.
The shape of the window does not protect the wall from collapse. Rather, it makes it more technically vulnerable. Modern engineers categorically refuse to use such cutouts in monolithic, load-bearing structures. Ancient architects were clearly guided by different motives when choosing this complex design. It is interesting to wonder whether the Incas used mathematical calculations to create such forms or acted intuitively. In the next chapter, you will learn about a discovery that completely refuted the theory of seismic stability. What was found in the old archives of the Conquistadors completely changes everything. Researchers stumbled upon forgotten reports by the first Spanish soldiers describing strange sound effects. The text described how the wind, passing through T-shaped windows, created a low-frequency, steady hum. This sound spread throughout the vast territory of the stone temple complex. For a long time, these records were considered merely a metaphor of impressionable European travelers. A team of modern acousticians traveled to the mountains of Peru with specialized recording equipment. They installed highly sensitive microphones inside rooms with T-shaped window openings. When the wind blew in a certain direction and with a certain force, the stone chamber began to vibrate softly. The instruments recorded a powerful infrasonic resonance just on the edge of human perception.
The architectural form acted as a giant Helmholtz resonator, amplifying specific frequencies.
The T-shaped geometry was ideal for creating a directional sound wave. The wider upper section captured the sound, while the narrow lower section directed it into the hall. In certain ritual chambers, the sound of the human voice was amplified many times over without distortion. A priest standing near such a window could project his speech over a vast area. The stone walls did not absorb sound, but reflected it thanks to the special polishing of their surfaces. Laboratory experiments have confirmed that changing the proportions of the window immediately destroys the acoustic effect. If the lower part is made even 2 centimeters wider, the resonance disappears. Ancient craftsmen strictly adhered to the mathematical ratio of the areas of the upper and lower sections. They understood the laws of sound wave propagation long before the advent of modern physics.
The complexes were built as a unified musical system, where the windows served as unique tuning forks.
Sound theory brilliantly explains the ideal precision of the window's internal surfaces. A rough stone would create unnecessary turbulence and dampen the pure sound wave. Craftsmen polished the inner edges of the openings to a glass-like smoothness. This required hundreds of hours of polishing using abrasive sands and hard minerals. Aesthetics played a secondary role here, yielding to the strict demands of acoustic physics. The acoustic properties of monolithic structures require absolutely perfect adherence to the specified proportions. The slightest deviation in the angle of the stone wall leads to the complete disappearance of the effect. Each window acts as a complex sound filter tuned to the desired frequency. Creating such a device requires profound knowledge of the physics of acoustic waves. Like this video if you're also impressed by the precision of ancient engineers. The secret, passed down from generation to generation, lies in the geometry of sharp shadows. The priests used a T-shaped design to precisely track the movement of massive celestial bodies. On the days of the equinoxes, rays of light pass through the opening and form a specific outline. This outline of light fits perfectly onto special stone recesses in the opposite wall of the temple. Such astronomical precision requires many years of continuous observation of the sun's path. The unique step shape allows for the creation of more complex and precise shadows than a standard rectangle. The inner corners of the T-shaped opening serve as markers for determining specific dates. The upper horizontal lintel blocks out excess light during the hot summer solstice. The narrow lower section directs a thin beam of light to the desired spot during the winter months. The entire building transforms into a giant calendar carved into solid rock. Researchers set up cameras to record the movement of light inside Peruvian sanctuaries. Time-lapse footage showed that the light spot glides across the walls with mathematical precision. On the day of the winter solstice, the shadow from the right corner of the window touches the niche of the ritual altar. The next day, the beam's trajectory shifts by just a few imperceptible millimeters. This shift is enough for the light marker to leave the confines of the stone recess. This astronomical theory is supported by findings in Native American settlements across the United States. In the ruins of Chaco Canyon, T-shaped doors and windows are also oriented according to astronomical cycles. The ancient Pueblo people used the same design to track lunar and solar phases. The mechanism of the light markers is completely identical to Peruvian monumental technologies. This proves the universality of this geometric solution for astronomical purposes in ancient times. The use of windows as observatories explains their frequent placement at high altitudes. The higher the opening is located, the longer and more precise the beam of light inside the dark room. Priests could predict the changing of the seasons, the onset of rains, and the time for sowing seeds. The stone calendar could not burn in a fire, rot from moisture, or be lost over time. It was integrated into the very structure of the load-bearing walls of the eternal granite structure. The use of windows as sophisticated astronomical instruments is confirmed by dozens of precise measurements. The shadow cast by the upper projections served as an uncompromising marker for determining the season. Such integration of massive architecture in astronomy testifies to the highest level of development of the architects. Have you noticed similar astronomical markers in modern urban architecture? In the next chapter, you will learn why academic science has reached an impasse in studying this phenomenon. The technology for creating monolithic openings began far beyond the construction site. The craftsman had to find a single block of granite or diorite of the perfect size in a quarry. The weight of a single such stone block often exceeded several dozen tons. The monolith was transported to the construction site across rough terrain without the use of wheeled vehicles. The block was delivered to the site completely intact, without a single deep crack. The greatest mystery remains the method used to remove excess rock from the center of the enormous monolith. Cutting a rectangle out of granite is difficult, but cutting a T-shaped profile is an order of magnitude harder. Internal corners require a tool capable of cutting hard stone at a 90-degree angle. Traditional copper chisels instantly dull and deform against the surface of hard andesite. Stone hammers leave jagged edges and micro cracks that destroy the structure of the massive block. Modern stonemasons use powerful diamond circular saws for such tasks. The saw makes two perpendicular cuts, and then the corner is knocked out with a strong mechanical blow. In the ancient windows of Peru, there are no traces of crosscuts at the corners of the structure. The inner surface of the joints is perfectly smooth, without the characteristic scratches from disc or wire saws. The corner is cut as if the hard granite had briefly turned into soft clay. The hardness of basalt and diorite on the Mohs scale is surpassed only by diamond and corundum. Working with such materials requires tools of superior physical hardness. Archaeologists have found neither diamond chisels nor corundum drills at the temple construction sites. The tools of the ancient stonemasons consist only of pieces of hematite, bronze, and ordinary copper. These tools are completely unsuitable for the precision cutting of ultra-hard, massive rocks. The problem of stone processing is compounded by the enormous scale of the construction work. A single temple complex alone may contain dozens of such perfectly cut stone windows. If the craftsman had used the primitive method of sand abrasion, the construction would have taken hundreds of years. The chronology of the Inca Empire's development does not allow for such a long period of free historical time. The buildings were erected quickly, as if the builders possessed the technology of industrial machine cutting. The physical characteristics of the carved windows defy all known limitations of manual labor. The depth of the openings in some monoliths exceeds 1 solid meter. Maintaining perfect geometry at such a depth is unthinkable without sophisticated measuring equipment. Each window is a challenge to modern science, proving the inadequacy of conventional historical models. We are confronted with the results of technologies that have been forever erased from human memory. No official theory can explain the mechanics of this ancient construction process. Scientists continue to describe the results of the work while ignoring the inexplicable method itself. Museum exhibits display primitive stones that were supposedly used to carve these perfect forms. Engineers conclude that academic history is mistaken in its assessment of the technical level of the past. The actual tools of the builders remain deeply hidden or have been completely destroyed by time. The technical limits of human capability at that time were exceeded many times over and without compromise. The existence of T-shaped openings in ultra-hard stone is a tangible, indisputable fact. This fact cannot be attributed to chance, religious fanaticism, or a vast number of slaves. The existence of a form requires the existence of a corresponding function and the technological base for its complex creation. The silent stones hold a secret that modern engineering has not yet been able to unravel. An experiment that did not go according to plan revealed entirely new architectural anomalies. A group of independent engineers attempted to recreate a T-shaped opening using authentic old tools. The use of primitive copper chisels led to the immediate destruction of the rock at the inner corners. Copper proved too soft to create smooth geometric cuts on a basalt block. The attempt demonstrated the physical impossibility of applying traditional methods to such complex tasks. The failure of the experiment prompted the researchers to examine the masonry around the window openings. Upon closer inspection, it became clear that many windows were not cut from a single monolithic block. Often, a complex opening is formed by joining several shaped blocks of polygonal masonry. Each of these blocks has its own unique shape and dozens of complex right angles. They join at the center, forming a perfect T-shape with filigree-like, uncanny precision. The situation became radiocarbon analysis of organic material in the crevices yielded unexpected results. It turned out that the stone blocks of the openings were significantly older than the fine rubble around them. This means that later cultures simply found the ancient windows and incorporated them into their walls. The Incas did not build these monolithic wonders. They merely used them as ready-made elements. The true creators of the T-shaped windows inhabited these lands long before the emergence of the famous empire. This discovery shattered the neat chronological picture of classical American archaeology. It became necessary to acknowledge the existence of a highly developed civilization thousands of years before the Incas. This hypothetical culture possessed stoneworking technologies that were unavailable to their later historical successors. They erected megalithic structures, which were later partially destroyed by an unknown cataclysm. The surviving descendants merely gathered the fragments of their former grandeur, attempting to imitate the ancient architecture. The failure of this construction experiment forced scientists to seek alternative, modern methods of stone cutting. None of the proposed options could explain the precision of the deep, internal corners of the opening. The mystery of the technology behind the precise processing of granite remains one of the greatest secrets of ancient architecture. Is it possible that such complex structural solutions were chosen by chance on different continents? In the next chapter, you will learn about the incredible logistical challenges ancient designers faced. The complexity of creating a geometrically precise opening pales in comparison to the logistics of delivering these materials. The quarries for pink porphyry and hard diorite are located tens of kilometers away from the temple complexes. Quarries are often situated on the opposite side of deep canyons and turbulent mountain rivers. Multi-ton blocks with carved edges had to be lowered down steep slopes. Then they had to be hoisted to dizzying heights without a system of metal cables. The wooden rollers that theorists suggest using for transport do not work in the mountains. The mountainous terrain of the Andes is rife with sharp rocks, steep elevation changes, and narrow, dangerous trails. A massive stone block would instantly crush any logs on the uneven, rocky surface. Transporting it by dragging would leave deep grooves on the rocks from the intense, constant friction. There are absolutely no traces of heavy transport on the polished surfaces of the T-shaped windows. Once delivered to the site, the block had to be installed into the wall with precision and absolute accuracy. A T-shaped window is often located several meters above the level of the bedrock. Lifting a 100-ton stone to such a height without hydraulic cranes is a titanic task. A system of earthen ramps would have required the construction of an entire mountain of earth around the temple under construction. Archaeologists have found no traces of such large-scale earthworks at the construction sites. When installing a block with a pre-cut arched opening, the slightest impact could have split the lower chamfer. The stone had to be lowered onto the adjacent blocks smoothly, controlling every minute movement. The absence of chips on the fragile inner corners indicates the use of sophisticated lifting equipment. This equipment must have ensured the stone was gently secured in place before being lowered. Ancient builders manipulated enormous masses with the ease of modern industrial robots. The paradox of moving such massive loads puts an end to primitive theories of ancient manual labor. The logistics of megalithic construction require a developed infrastructure and deep academic engineering knowledge. Without an understanding of the laws of physics, levers, and weight distribution, such a construction project would have come to an immediate halt. T-shaped windows are silent testimony to the existence of a complex, completely lost industry. The scale of this industry spanned vast, mountainous territories. The presence of prefabricated windows in the most inaccessible places on the planet leaves scientists speechless. They stand atop sheer cliffs, accessible today only by helicopter. The material for these structures was quarried in the lowlands and hauled up vertical stone walls. This logistical nightmare is ignored by history textbooks in order to preserve established old concepts. The ancient stones continue to silently guard their secrets, awaiting an objective technological investigation. T-shaped openings break not only technological barriers, but also established geographical boundaries. For a long time, the phenomenon was considered an exclusively American architectural and historical mystery. However, a detailed analysis of ruins on other continents has led to stunning, seemingly impossible discoveries. Exactly the same geometric forms have been found in the ancient temple complexes of Asia Minor. They are present in the architecture of Göbekli Tepe, which is over 12,000 years old. Monolithic T-shaped columns and openings tower over the territory of pre-dynastic ancient Egypt. They are carved into the rock tombs of Lycia in modern-day sunny Turkey. The geometry of these forms completely matches that of their Peruvian and North American stone counterparts. The proportions, the angles of the chamfers, and even the acoustic resonance characteristics of the spaces are identical. This is direct evidence of the global spread of a single architectural and engineering standard. Official history denies the possibility of transoceanic contact in such ancient times. It is believed that the cultures of Eurasia and the Americas developed in absolute, impenetrable isolation from one another. The appearance of identical, complex structures at opposite ends of the Earth is attributed to mere coincidence. However, probability theory rules out the accidental duplication of such a specific and difficult engineering solution. A T-shaped window is not a natural or simple form for monolithic stone masonry. A global network of megalithic structures with such windows forms a unified planetary system. Many of these sites are located on specific geological faults or energy lines. They seem to mark important nodal points on the surface of the vast globe. The similarity in methods of working with hard stone across different continents defies rational explanation. This challenges the entire academic scientific community, demanding the creation of a new historical and contemporary paradigm. Enthusiastic researchers continue to discover new sites with this distinctive profile in the jungle. Every new discovery in Asia or Africa confirms the theory of a global architectural geocode. These silent stones bear witness to a world that was united by advanced technologies. That world has vanished, leaving behind only the most durable granite and basalt elements. The T-shaped windows have become a unique message carved into eternal, indestructible material. The collection and analysis of data on the global distribution of this form is still ongoing. Modern satellite imagery helps identify hidden ruins with similar, perfect geometry. The emerging picture shatters the myth of the primitiveness and isolation of ancient human tribes. The engineering genius of the past knew no continental borders or insurmountable cultural barriers. The planet was home to a civilization of builders on a scale we can scarcely imagine. The accumulated body of data on T-shaped openings inevitably leads to a massive academic crisis. The facts regarding physical complexity, acoustic tuning, and global distribution cannot be denied by the evidence. However, leading historical institutions continue to ignore these inconvenient and vexing archaeological anomalies. Articles on the technical contradictions of megalithic masonry are extremely rarely published in academic journals. The topic is subject to an unspoken ban in conservative academic circles and at archaeological symposia. The reason for this profound silence lies in the threat of disrupting the established academic system. Acknowledging the existence of a highly advanced civilization of the past would require rewriting all foundational textbooks. Professors who have built their careers on the theory of the Incas' primitive development risk losing their status. It is easier to ignore the smooth corners in the diorite than to admit the invalidity of their many years of work. Science has turned into a system for defending old dogmas against new, objective physical discoveries. Funding for excavations is strictly controlled by government and private academic foundations. Grants are awarded only to research that confirms the classical chronology of human development. A group of engineers wishing to study traces of machine cutting in Peru will never receive official funding. Independent researchers are forced to work at their own expense under constant harsh criticism. They are called dreamers, despite the fact that they operate with precise mathematical measurements of stone. A telling example is the case of a laboratory that attempted to publish data on the resonant frequencies of openings. The article was rejected by the editors without undergoing a proper independent scientific review. The reason for the rejection was a statement that the results did not correspond to generally accepted historical baseline models. Journals demand proof of the existence of machines, ignoring the very fact that precise machine-cut sections exist. A vicious circle arises, where the absence of found tools serves as a reason to deny the work itself. Despite enormous resistance from the academic community, the truth about ancient stones is gradually coming to light. Engineers, physicists, and builders are beginning to join forces for an independent, large-scale study of the ruins. The use of drones and laser scanning allows for the creation of precise 3D models of the stone structures. These models are made publicly available where anyone can appreciate their geometric perfection. The monopoly on historical truth is slowly but surely crumbling under the weight of irrefutable facts. Ignoring the facts does not make them any less real or any less daunting in their complexity. The stones stand in their places, challenging anyone willing to open their eyes. The T-shaped windows remain a silent rebuke to official science, which has shut itself off from complex, unsolvable questions. Acknowledging the problem is the first step toward understanding the true, grand history of our planet. Sooner or later, the academic community will have to face this cold, granite reality. Far from scientific debates and tourist trails, the ancient stones continue their eternal vigil. The T-shaped windows gaze with empty sockets at the ever-changing and restless modern world. They have survived the rise and fall of dozens of empires, climatic catastrophes, and devastating global wars. The perfectly carved corners of the basalt are impervious to both wind erosion and brutal human vandalism. These structures were built to last forever, with a margin of strength beyond the comprehension of modern architecture. The scale of our loss in understanding our own past is felt here with particularly acute physical poignancy. We look at the achievements of the highest engineering genius and cannot name these masters. A civilization capable of cutting diorite like butter and controlling sound has vanished without a trace. It left behind only a bare technological skeleton of megalithic, monolithic blocks. The passage of time has erased any organic evidence of their great, forgotten daily life. Every window is a monument to colossal efforts and technical knowledge beyond our reach. Looking at the perfect proportions of the cut, the modern builder feels a sense of profound professional vulnerability. All our steel cranes and laser levels seem like temporary toys against the backdrop of these stones. We take pride in our skyscrapers, which require major repairs after just 50 short years. The ancients, however, left behind structures that require no maintenance for thousands upon thousands of years. A cold wind continues to howl through these stone resonators, just as it did millennia ago. A ray of sunlight still falls precisely into the niche on the day of the winter solstice. The architectural mechanism continues to function, even though its creators have long since turned to cosmic dust. This long-term effect demonstrates a completely different approach to human interaction with the environment. They built not to protect against nature, but in absolute harmony with its laws. The history of T-shaped openings proves that humanity's path of development has not always been linear. There have been peaks of technological power, followed by periods of deep cultural and engineering oblivion. We must be prepared to accept this fact and begin asking the right, complex, technical questions. The stones will wait as long as it takes for our full intellectual maturation. Their monumental silence is the greatest challenge to our minds and our modern science. We have come a long way from blind confidence in simple theories to an awareness of the daunting complexity of technology. The silent T-shaped windows remain the greatest challenge for modern historical science and engineering physics. They prove that the chronicle of humanity hides enormous gaps that require immediate and profound rethinking. What other architectural mysteries of antiquity would you like to explore in our upcoming videos? Be sure to write your suggestions in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our investigations.